Hey, I'm Emma. Welcome to Emma's Betrayal Stories now. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories aren't rushed, they're the kind you sit with. Today's story comes with an update and my own personal opinions throughout the story. Let me know in the comments if you agree or see it differently. Let's begin. After my family disowned me, I created a new life full of friends who truly care about me. My dad's voice is still bouncing off the dining room walls when I stand up so fast my chair legs scrape the tile like a scream. The overhead light is too bright, the kind that makes every face look harsher, and my mum's stew, something that usually smells like comfort, just sits in my stomach like wet cement. My brother's eyes are fixed on his plate like it might open and swallow him. "You're not leaving," Dad says, slow and final, like he's reading a verdict. His knuckles are white around his water glass. "Not for that. Not for them. Not after everything we've done." I hear the rain tapping the kitchen window, and I realize my hands are shaking hard enough that my cutlery is rattling against the plate. I don't remember deciding to move, but suddenly I'm in the hallway, and the carpet under my bare feet feels rougher than it ever has. My throat is burning, like I swallowed something sharp. Mum follows me out, her cardigan sleeves pushed up, her hands wet from washing dishes, and she keeps opening and closing her mouth like she can't find the right words. Dad stays in the dining room, but his presence fills the house anyway, like heat from an oven you can't turn off. "Please," Mum says, grabbing my wrist, not hard, just enough to stop me. Her fingers are warm and trembling. "Just go back in. Say you'll think about it. Just say it." I look back down the hall and see Dad's silhouette in the doorway, shoulders squared, waiting for me to fold. The air smells like onions and detergent and something metallic, like fear. It was a Tuesday night when my family disowned me, and it happened so fast and so slowly at the same time that I still get flashes of it when I'm trying to fall asleep. We'd been a loud family my whole life. Always someone talking, always a TV on, always relatives dropping by unannounced. But that night the house felt like it was holding its breath, like everyone already knew what was coming except me. I'm 26.
I'd been offered a job in another city, an actual job in my field, the thing I worked toward while juggling waitressing shifts and late-night study sessions. I wasn't asking them for money. I wasn't asking them to come with me. I was asking them not to treat my life like a group project they could vote on. The problem wasn't the job itself. The problem was that leaving meant I couldn't do the things they'd quietly assigned me, be the reliable daughter who comes home every weekend, be the built-in babysitter for my cousin's kids at every family event, be the one who helps at Dad's business when someone calls in sick, be the one who nods and smiles when aunties ask invasive questions, be the one who makes herself smaller so everyone else can feel bigger. And then there was Mara. Mara is my girlfriend. Even writing that word still makes my shoulders tense like I'm waiting for someone to burst through a door and correct me. I didn't have a dramatic coming out. I didn't sit everyone down and make a speech. I told Mum first, quietly, like you tell someone you're afraid of thunderstorms. She stared at me for a long time, then said, "Don't tell your father yet. He'll worry," which was her way of saying he'll explode. I told my brother next, and he did this long exhale and said, "Okay," but in the same tone you'd use if someone told you they got a weird rash. Then he asked, "Is this a phase?" It wasn't a phase. It was the first time I'd ever felt like my body belonged to me. Mara and I met at a friend's birthday. She had pain on her thumb and laughed like she didn't care who hurt her. She asked me questions that weren't designed to trap me. The first time she came over to my place, she took her shoes off at the door without me saying anything, and when she saw my nervousness, she said, softly, "It's okay. I'm not here to take anything from you." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that until I almost cried. My dad found out about Mara the same week I got the job offer. I hadn't planned it like that, but life doesn't care about your timing. He saw a photo on my phone. Mara and I sitting on a park bench, our heads touching, her hand around my wrist like it was the most natural thing in the world. He didn't yell right away. He went very quiet. He asked me to unlock my phone again like he couldn't believe what he saw. Then he handed it back like it was dirty. For days after, The house was full of silence that wasn't peaceful. Mom cooked more than usual, like food could glue us back into shape. Dad avoided looking at me. My brother became a ghost, slipping out of rooms the moment I entered. Then my dad told me we needed a family conversation on Tuesday. Those words always meant someone was about to be punished. That dinner table felt like a courtroom. Dad sat at the head. Mom sat close to him, shoulders tucked in, like she could disappear if she tried hard enough. My brother sat across from me, and his knee bounced under the table so fast I could see it through his jeans.
Dad didn't start with the job.
He started with Mara. This ends, he said, like it was an instruction, not a statement. You can move for work if you want, but you move as my daughter. Not like this. I remember staring at the rim of my water glass and seeing my own mouth reflected, tense and small. I remember thinking if I agree to this, I will never get myself back. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingers.
No, I said. Just that. No explanation. No pleading. No negotiating. Dad's face changed.
It wasn't surprise. It was rage mixed with something worse, disgust, like he'd found mold in his own kitchen. Then you're choosing her over us. I'm choosing me, I said, and my voice shook, but it came out. Mom reached for my hand under the table. Her palm was sweaty. Sweetheart, she whispered. Just for now. Just until things calmed down. My brother didn't look up. Dad stood so suddenly his chair tipped backward and thudded against the wall. If you walk out that door with this, he said, gesturing at me like my entire body was the problem, don't come back. You're not going to bring shame into my house and then expect us to clap for you. Something inside me went very cold and very clear. I pushed my chair back and stood. My legs felt weak, but they held me. Okay, I said.
I didn't plan to say it.
It just came out. That's when Mum followed me into the hall with wet hands and a desperate face, and Dad stood at the end like a wall. In my room, I started pulling out drawers with movements that felt automatic.
Socks. Jeans.
My passport. The folder where I kept my degree certificate and my work contract. I kept expecting someone to burst in and stop me the way they used to when I was a teenager sneaking out. But no one came. Just Mum in the doorway, whispering, please, and my brother's footsteps pacing somewhere behind the wall, like he was rehearsing his guilt. I heard Dad say from the hallway, let her go. She wants to be grown. Let her be grown. I zipped my suitcase, so hard I thought the zipper would break. My hands smelled like lavender laundry powder. My eyes burned. I walked past Mum, and she made this small, helpless sound like an animal. She didn't block me again. She just stood there, arms folded across her stomach, like she was holding herself together. At the front door, Dad said, give me your key. I dug it out of my pocket and put it on the little table by the entryway. My key landed with a quiet clink that sounded too normal for what is happening. My brother finally appeared, standing behind Dad, and for the first time all night he met my eyes. His face was pale. He looked like he wanted to say something brave and couldn't find it. He swallowed hard and said, you're being selfish. The word hit me harder than Dad's yelling because it came from someone who knew exactly where to aim. I stared at him for a second and felt my mouth go numb. Then I picked up my suitcase, opened the door, and stepped into the rain. The air outside was cold enough to shock my lungs. My hair stuck to my cheeks. I walked down the front steps and didn't look back until I reached the driveway. The porch light made the rain look like falling needles. I turned, and through the window I saw Dad's silhouette. Mum was behind him. My brother was somewhere in the dark of the hall. The door shut. The lock clicked. I stood there for a second with my suitcase, handle digging into my palm, and realized I'd just been exiled from my own life. That night, I slept in my car because I was too embarrassed to text anyone, and because part of me still believed my dad would calm down and call me back inside like, okay, fine, we'll talk. I parked on a side street a few blocks away where the streetlights flickered. I reclined the seat, as far as it would go. My suitcase sat in the passenger seat like a silent witness. The rain drummed on the roof, steady and loud, and I stared at the fogged-up windshield until my eyes ached. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Mom, are you safe?
Just that. No apology. No invitation.
I typed yes, then deleted it, then typed I'm safe. I love you, then deleted it too. My throat felt tight. I finally sent I'm safe. Mom didn't reply. In the morning, my neck was stiff from sleeping wrong. My makeup had smeared under my eyes, and when I looked in the rearview mirror, I barely recognized myself. I drove to the nearest cafe that opened early and sat in a corner with a coffee I couldn't taste, charging my phone and trying not to cry when people laughed around me like the world hadn't cracked. I texted Mara, "Can I come over?" She replied immediately, "Yes." "Where are you?" "I'm coming." When she pulled into the cafe parking lot, she didn't look shocked by my suitcase or my swollen eyes. She just got out, walked around to my window, and tapped lightly, like she didn't want to startle me. When I stepped out, she wrapped her arms around me and held on like she meant it. Her hoodie smelled like clean soap and the faint sweetness of her shampoo. I pressed my face into her shoulder and felt the first sob rip out of me so suddenly I almost choked. "I'm sorry," I said automatically because apologizing is my default. "Stop," she said, firm and gentle. "You don't apologize for being hurt." At her apartment, she made me sit on the couch and drink water while she pulled out a clean towel for my hair. She didn't ask 100 questions at once. She just asked, "Did they say you can't come back?" And when I nodded, she said, "Okay, then we plan." The word plan felt like a rope thrown across a gap. For the next month, I lived in a weird limbo that I didn't know how to explain to people. I went to work. I smiled at customers. I answered emails about my new job in the other city. I packed little boxes in Mara's living room while her roommate pretended not to notice. I changed my banking passwords because Dad had helped me open my first account when I was 18 and I suddenly realized help can mean access. I switched my phone plan into my own name. I collected my documents. I called my university to have my degree reissued because my original was in my childhood room and I couldn't bear the thought of going back alone. I didn't tell many people at first because my family disowned me sounds dramatic out loud, like you're auditioning for sympathy. But when you actually say it, people's faces change. Some get uncomfortable.
Some ask what you did.
Some say, "But they're your family." Like that's a spell that fixes everything. The first person I told besides Mara was my coworker Nisha, because she saw me staring at my phone during a shift, jaw clenched, and she said, "Who died?" in this blunt, affectionate way. "No one," I said, and then my voice broke. My dad kicked me out. Nisha didn't ask why right away. She just said, "Okay. Are you eating? Do you have somewhere to sleep?" When I said I was staying with Mara, Nisha nodded like that was one checkbox, then immediately started building the rest. "I have a spare air mattress if you need it," she said. "And if you need someone to go with you to get your stuff, I'm free Saturday." That was the first brick in my new life, someone offering help without making me beg. After that, the new life didn't arrive like a movie montage. It grew in small, unglamorous ways. It grew when Nisha brought me leftover biryani in a plastic container and didn't make it a big deal. It grew when Mara's friend Link, who looks like a punk guitarist but works in accounting, helped me update my resume and said, "Your dad doesn't get to decide your worth." It grew when Mara's roommate Jules, who I barely knew, left a note on the fridge that said, "Take whatever you need." Seriously. It grew when I went to a friend's birthday, and someone I'd only met twice pulled me into their group chat like I'd always been there. The first holiday without my family was the worst. I walked past houses with Christmas lights and felt this hollow ache like someone had scooped out my insides. Mara invited a bunch of friends over for a chaotic dinner. Too many side dishes, mismatched plates, someone's dog stealing bread rolls off the coffee table. People wore ugly sweaters, ironically. Someone spilled wine and immediately cleaned it up without blaming anyone. At one point, I went to the bathroom and just stood there breathing because I couldn't handle how normal it all felt. The normality hurt more than sadness. It made me realize how many years I'd spent earning affection like a salary. When my phone buzzed that night, it was a message from my brother. Dad says if you apologize and end it, you can come home. I stared at the screen. Mara knocked on the bathroom door gently. You okay? She called. I opened the door and showed her the message. Her eyes narrowed in a way I'd come to recognize as her anger concentrating into something usable. You don't have to answer, she said. But if you do, you answer as you, not as the version they trained. I sat on the edge of the bathtub and typed, I'm not apologizing for who I am. I hope you're okay. My brother replied, You're choosing this. I didn't answer. A week before I was meant to move for my new job, I got an email from my dad. Subject line, You left your things. The body was one sentence. Come get your stuff by Friday or it goes in the bin. My chest tightened. My entire childhood was in that room. Books I'd underlined. Photos. My grandmother's bracelet. Little things that don't matter until someone threatens to erase them. Mara said, We go together. Nisha said, I'll come too. Link said, I'll drive behind you. Jules said, Take my pepper spray. I didn't want pepper spray. I wanted my family not to be people I needed a witness for. We pulled up to my parents' house on a gray Thursday afternoon. The porch looked the same. The wind chimes were still there. The plants Mum always watered were still alive. It felt like the house was pretending nothing happened. Dad opened the door when we knocked. He looked at Mara first, then at my friends behind me, then at me. His mouth tightened. Oh, he said, like he'd been caught off guard by me not coming alone. I'm here for my things, I said, voice steady. Dad's eyes flicked over my shoulder again, calculating. You brought an audience. I brought support, I said, and my hands were sweating, but I didn't wipe them. You said Friday. He stepped aside reluctantly. The hallway smelled like the same detergent, and my stomach lurched like my body remembered being small here. Mum was in the kitchen. I saw her through the doorway, her back turned. She didn't look around. I walked to my room like I was walking through water. Dad followed behind me like a guard. He stood in the doorway while I packed. I could feel him watching every move. I found the bracelet in the top drawer. I held it for a second, the metal cool against my skin, and swallowed hard. Dad cleared his throat. You're really doing this, he said. I didn't answer. I folded my clothes. I put books in a box. I found the photo of me and my brother at the beach when we were kids, both of us sunburnt and grinning. I stared at it too long. Dad said, Quieter now, he's hurting. He hurt me first, I said, and I surprised myself with how calm it came out. When my box was full, I carried it down the hall. Mara took it from me without a word and carried it out. Nisha was in the living room, arms folded, polite but unyielding. Link stood by the doorway like a bouncer in a denim jacket. It should have felt ridiculous. Instead, it felt like the first time I'd ever been protected without having to earn it. In the kitchen, Mum finally turned around. Her eyes landed on me, and for a second her face crumpled. She opened her mouth. Dad said, sharply, Don't start. Mum's mouth closed. I walked past her with my box, and my throat closing like I'd swallowed a fist. When I reached the front door, Mum said, barely audible, I kept your school photos. I froze. Turned. She stood there clutching a dish towel, so hard her fingers looked red. Her eyes were wet. Dad glared at her like she'd committed betrayal. I looked at Mum, and something inside me cracked, not in a clean way, but in a jagged, exhausting way. Keep them, I said softly. You can look at them when you miss me. Mum flinched like I'd slapped her with truth. We walked out, and as we loaded the car, Dad stood on the porch and said loud enough for everyone to hear, Don't come crying when this life breaks you. I shut the trunk with a hard slam and felt heat in my eyes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to collapse. I wanted to go back and fix it like I always did. Instead, I got in the car. We drove away. That night, I sat on Mara's couch surrounded by boxes and felt like I'd been scraped raw. My phone buzzed again. A new message from an unknown number. You're making Mum sick with stress. My stomach dropped. My fingers went cold. I knew it was my brother, without even thinking. He always used Mom like a lever. I stared at the message, my pulse thundering in my ears, and then there was another text immediately after. Dad's serious. He'll cut you off for good. Last chance. I looked up and Mara was watching me from the kitchen doorway, her face tight. What is it? She asked. I handed her my phone. Mara read the messages, then looked at me like she was trying to hold me steady with her eyes. You don't have to answer, she said again. But we do need to decide what happens if they keep doing this. And that's where I'm stopping the story for a moment, because this is the point where my old self would have caved. The point where being a good daughter would have strangled everything I'd built. The point where I had to choose, in a way that felt like tearing skin. Keep trying to be loved by people who only loved obedience, or keep walking into a life that was finally mine. Your dad is operating on a very specific kind of authority, the kind that only works if everyone agrees his feelings are law. Notice how everything is framed as shame and audience and last chance. That's not love. That's a hostage negotiation where he's both the kidnapper and the negotiator. He doesn't want to understand you. He wants the story to go back to the version where he's never challenged. And the line about your life breaking you is pure spite dressed up as concern. He's basically wishing failure on you, so he can call it proof. Your mom is heartbreaking, but also complicit. I don't say that to be cruel. She's trapped in the same system, but she still has choices. Every time she almost speaks and then swallows it because dad snaps, she's teaching everyone, including you, that your pain is less important than his comfort. Her keeping your school photos is the saddest detail because it's the closest she gets to tenderness without defying him. She's grieving you while you're alive. Your brother? He's the family's little messenger drone. He's not brave enough to stand up to dad, so he does the next best thing. He stands up to you, where it's safer. And using your mom's health as a weapon is low. That's not hurting. That's manipulation with a soft voice. Mara and your friends are the real deal. Support that doesn't come with a price tag is rare. They're not rescuing you. They're standing next to you while you rescue yourself. That matters. Update. Okay, I didn't expect so many people to message me after I posted, and I definitely didn't expect the range of reactions, from your dad is abusive run to but family is family, you'll regret it. I read more comments than I should have at 1 a.m. while Mara slept with one arm flung over my waist like she was physically anchoring me to the mattress. I cried quietly so I wouldn't wake her. Not because strangers were mean, because strangers were seeing what I'd normalized. A few things happened quickly after the unknown number texts. First, I changed my number. I didn't want it because it felt like admitting defeat, but the constant buzzing was like being poked in a bruise. My brother could always find a new way to reach me, and I realized I was still living like they owned access to me. My friends helped me do it practically. Nisha came with me to the mobile shop. Link helped me update my banking and job contact info. Mar sat with me while I drafted a message to the people I actually wanted in my life. The message to my family was one line. This number is no longer in use. If you need to contact me, email me. Second, I emailed my dad. I kept it short because long emails are just fuel for people who want to argue. I wrote, I'm moving for my job on Monday. I will not discuss my relationship as a condition of family contact. If you want a relationship with me, it will be based on respect. If you contact me to threaten, guilt, or insult me, I will not respond. I stared at it for 10 minutes before sending it. My finger hovered over the mouse like it weighed a ton. Then I clicked. He replied within an hour. His email was 3 paragraphs long, and it was mostly him explaining how much he'd sacrificed, how ungrateful I was, how confused I'd become, how Mara was using me, and how I was breaking your mother. He never once said, I miss you. He never once asked if I was okay. The closest he got to tenderness was, you were a good girl once. That line made me feel nauseous. Not because I wanted to be bad. Because it reminded me that in his mind, goodness was obedience. Mara read it over my shoulder, jaw tight, and said, you don't answer that. Then she paused and softened. But if you need to say something for yourself, you can. Just don't expect it to change him. So I didn't answer. I printed the email and put it in a folder anyway because a bunch of commenters had told me to document everything. That felt dramatic until the next thing happened. Third, my dad called my new workplace. I found out because my new manager, an older woman named Bev with short gray hair and the kind of voice that makes you stand straighter, called me and said, "Hey love, do you have a parent who's likely to ring here?" My stomach dropped so hard it felt like my organs moved. Bev explained that a man had called asking questions about my schedule, my start date, whether I'd been reliable in the past. He'd framed it as concern and family. Bev told him she couldn't discuss employee details and ended the call.
Then she called me.
I sat on Mara's couch with the phone pressed to my ear, sweat breaking out under my arms. My first instinct was shame, like I'd been exposed. Then I felt anger hot enough to make my vision blur.
He didn't just disown me.
He was trying to sabotage my independence, so I'd have to crawl back. Bev said, calm but firm, "If it happens again, we'll handle it. You're not in trouble. But I need you to make sure your workplace is a safe boundary." After I hung up, I stared at the wall for a long time. Mara sat next to me and didn't talk until I could breathe again. Then she said, "Okay, we escalate." So I went to the police station. Not to get my dad arrested, but to start a paper trail. I brought the emails, the unknown number texts, the log of Bev's call. The officer I spoke to was blunt but kind. She told me what I could do: file a report for harassment, request an intervention order if it continued, notify my workplace security, keep documentation. Walking out of that station felt surreal. I didn't grow up thinking my dad and police report would ever belong in the same sentence. But I also felt something else, small but powerful. I was acting like my safety mattered. The day I moved, my friends turned it into a whole operation.
Jules burodavan.
Nisha brought snacks and water, like we were going on a road trip instead of me fleeing my old life. Link carried boxes like it was his job. Mara labeled everything in thick black marker. Someone made a playlist that was half hype songs and half songs that made me cry at the wrong time. When we arrived at my new apartment, it was empty except for a wobbly table and the smell of fresh paint. The windows looked out over a street with small shops and a bus stop. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. That first night, we ate takeaway on the floor. Everyone sat in a circle like a weird little ceremony. Nisha raised her drink and said, "To Sophie, who survived her family and still packs neatly." Everyone laughed, and the laugh felt like oxygen. Later, after they left and the apartment went quiet, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes and felt the grief hit me in a wave so strong I had to press my forehead to my knees. Because freedom and loss can live in the same body at the same time. Because I missed my mom's cooking. Because I missed the sound of my family even when it hurt. Because I kept remembering the lock clicking behind me like a punctuation mark. Mara climbed onto the floor with me and said, "Tell me what you need." "I don't know," I whispered. She kissed my temple and said, "Then we figured out." 2 days later, my brother emailed me. Not texted, emailed, because my number was gone. He wrote, "Dad says you're making a big mistake. Mom isn't sleeping. He's worried you'll get hurt." I stared at it and felt the old pull. Guilt, responsibility, the reflex to fix. Then I remembered Dad calling my workplace. I replied carefully, "Do not contact my job again. Do not contact me to guilt or threaten. If Mom is struggling, that's between her and Dad. You are welcome to speak to me respectfully, but my relationship and my identity are not up for debate." My brother replied, "So you really don't care?" That sentence used to work on me. It used to flip the prove you're good switch. This time, I wrote back, "I care. I'm just not controllable anymore." He didn't respond. A week after that, Mom emailed me 2 words. "Are you eating?" I stared at it so long my eyes stung. It was the most Mom question in the world, and it cracked me open. I replied, "Yes." "Are you okay?" She wrote, "I miss you."
No apology. No promise. Just that.
I cried on my kitchen floor, and then I ate a piece of toast because yes, I was eating. Back to the story, finishing it off. After the workplace call and the police report, I stopped thinking of my family as a problem to solve and started thinking of them as people with boundaries. That shift sounds small, but it changed everything. It meant I didn't have to convince them. I just had to protect myself. My new job was hard in the way good jobs are hard. I came home exhausted, feet aching, brain buzzing. The first time I got praised by my manager for handling a stressful situation calmly, I had to go to the bathroom and breathe because I realized my family had never praised calm. They praised compliance. Calm was something I learned by necessity, not encouragement. My friends became my routine. Nisha visited one weekend and brought groceries like it was the most normal thing in the world. Jules sent me photos of her cat sitting in my old hoodie. Link called to ask if I'd set up my retirement contributions because he's apparently allergic to chaos. Mara stayed over most nights, and on the nights she didn't, we kept the phone line open while we did our separate chores, like company mattered more than words. Then, 3 months in, my dad emailed me again. Subject line: family emergency. My stomach dropped instantly because my body still responds to him like a fire alarm. The email was short. Your grandmother is in hospital. If you want to see her, come now.
Put your nonsense aside.
I stared at the phrase, your nonsense, and felt my jaw tighten. My grandma raised me as much as my parents did. She taught me how to roll grape leaves. She used to slip me coins for the bus when Dad said I didn't need them. She used to squeeze my hand under the table when Dad got too loud. I called Mum. She answered on the second ring like she'd been holding the phone. Her voice sounded thin. Sophie, tell me about Grandma, I said. Mum started crying immediately. She had a stroke, she whispered. She's awake, but not herself. My throat tightened. I'm coming, I said, and the words were out before I could think. Mum inhaled shakily. Your father. I'm not coming to be punished, I said, voice firm. I'm coming to see Grandma. Mum went quiet. Then she said, small, okay. Mara drove with me, even though I didn't ask. She just picked up her keys and said, I'm coming. In the car, my hands kept clenching and unclenching on my lap. My stomach churned. At the hospital, the fluorescent lights made everything feel unreal. The air smelled like sanitizer and stale coffee. Mum met us in the hallway, eyes red, face puffy. She looked smaller than I remembered. She hugged me quickly, too quickly, like she was afraid Dad would see and explode. Dad was in the waiting area with my brother. He stood when he saw me, posture stiff. His eyes flicked to Mara and narrowed. You brought her, he said flatly. I brought support, I said, repeating the words like a shield. Dad's jaw clenched. This is a hospital, not your stage. My brother didn't look at me. Mum whispered, please, not here. And for the first time, I didn't snap at Mum for saying that. I understood. Hospitals magnify everything. I just said, I'm here for Grandma. When I walked into my grandma's room, the sight of her in that bed, smaller, skin papery, hair brushed back, hit me like a physical force. She turned her head slowly, and her eyes found mine. They widened. Her mouth trembled. Habibti, she whispered. I crossed the room and took her hand gently. Her fingers were warm, but her grip was weak. My eyes burned instantly. I leaned down and pressed my forehead to her knuckles like I used to when I was little. I'm here, I whispered. I'm here. She looked past me, toward the door where Mum hovered, and then back to me.
Her voice was raspy. Don't.
Go back, she said, slow and effortful. I froze. What? I whispered. She swallowed hard. You free, she whispered, and then her eyes filled with tears. You free. My throat closed. I blinked rapidly because crying felt like my whole body would collapse. Behind me, Dad made a sharp sound, like disbelief or anger. Mum, he said, stepping forward. Don't. My grandma squeezed my fingers with surprising strength. Let her, she whispered. Let her live. I turned slightly, still holding my grandma's hand, and looked at my dad. His face was tight, like he was furious with an old woman for not performing the right script. In that moment, something in me settled. I didn't have to win an argument. I didn't have to make him understand. I had my answer from the person who mattered most. After we left the room, Dad cornered me in the hallway. "You come in here with her," he hissed, keeping his voice low but sharp. "You confuse your grandmother. You make her upset." "You upset her," I said, and my voice didn't shake. "You've been upsetting her for years." Dad's eyes flashed. "You think these friends will be there when you're older? When you're sick? Family is all you have." I looked at him, really looked. His face was lined with stress and stubbornness. His eyes were tired. For a moment, I felt grief for the version of him that could have been different. Then I remembered the workplace call. "My friends are here now," I said. "And they don't love me conditionally." Dad's mouth twisted. "So you're choosing strangers over blood?" "I'm choosing people who don't threaten me," I said. He leaned closer. "You'll regret this." Mara stepped between us, not aggressively, just firmly, like a door closing. "Back up," she said, calm but deadly serious. Dad stared at her like she was something indecent. Then he looked at me. "You're gone," he said and walked away. Mum watched it happen, hands clasped to her chest. My brother stood behind Dad like a shadow. In the car afterward, my hands shook on the steering wheel even though I wasn't the one driving. Mara drove. I stared out the window and felt emptiness and relief mixing in my chest like oil and water. That night, Mum emailed me again. "Thank you for coming." Grandma was happy. I replied, "I love you. I can't come back unless Dad changes how he treats me." Mum didn't respond right away. 2 days later, she wrote, "I don't know how to fix this." And for the first time, I didn't try to fix it for her. I wrote, "I'm not asking you to fix him. I'm asking you to stop helping him hurt me." That was the line, the boundary, the truth. My life didn't become perfect after that. There were still nights I missed the sound of my family cooking and arguing. There were still times guilt hit me out of nowhere, like walking past a mother holding her daughter's hand. But there were also mornings I woke up in my apartment, sunlight hitting the kitchen floor, and I realized I could breathe without anticipating someone's anger. My new family became real in the ways that matter. Nisha introduced me to her parents, and they asked me what I did for work like it was interesting, not like it was a threat. Jules came over when I was sick and brought soup and didn't ask me to earn it. Link showed up to my award night at work, just a small certificate, nothing dramatic, and clapped like I'd won an Oscar. Mara held my hand in public without me scanning the room for danger. We hosted our own messy little holidays. We made our own traditions. We argued about dishes and laughed about dumb things, and then sat in comfortable silence like it was safe. And one day, months later, when I was in the grocery store holding 2 different brands of pasta sauce and feeling inexplicably overwhelmed, I realized something so quiet it almost didn't register. I wasn't waiting for my family's permission anymore. I put the pasta sauce in the cart, went home, and cooked dinner with Mara while Jules texted me a photo of her cat wearing a ridiculous bow tie. I laughed out loud, alone in my kitchen, and the sound didn't bounce off walls that were waiting to punish me. It just existed. That's what my new life looks like. Not revenge. Not victory. Just a life where love doesn't come with ultimatums. Your dad is the kind of person who thinks respect means don't challenge me, and he's trained the whole household to treat his moods like weather, something everyone must adjust to, something no one is allowed to blame. His favorite weapons are shame, fear, and scarcity. You'll regret it. Don't come back. Family is all you have. That's not guidance. That's control dressed up as tradition. And calling your identity nonsense in the middle of a medical crisis tells you everything. Even when life is fragile, he still prioritizes dominance. He doesn't deserve access to you if he can't handle your autonomy. Your mom makes me feel 2 things at once: tenderness and frustration. She clearly loves you. The "are you eating?" email is pure mother language. But love without protection turns into a kind of quiet betrayal. Every time she swallowed her words because Dad snapped, she chose peace with him over safety for you. I don't think she's evil. I think she's scared and conditioned and exhausted. But she still has responsibility. If she wants you in her life, she has to stop acting like your boundaries are drama and start acting like they're survival. Your brother is the most disappointing type of coward, the one who uses guilt as a leash because he's too afraid to confront the person actually holding power. The "mom is sick because of you" text is manipulative and gross. He wants you back in the system because your presence makes his role easier. If you're the selfish one, he gets to stay the good son without doing any hard work. Mara and your friends are what real care looks like. Not speeches, not grand gestures, just consistent showing up. They didn't demand you perform gratitude. They didn't treat your pain like entertainment. They built a practical bridge out of a burning house and stood there while you walked across it. That's rare, and it's the exact antidote to the kind of love your dad offers, love that must be purchased with obedience. And you? You did the hardest thing. You stopped negotiating your humanity. You didn't become cruel. You didn't become reckless. You became clear. And that clarity is why you're going to be okay, even on the days it still hurts.